I promised a video on making this background paper here. I call it the distressed wallpaper because it reminds me of wallpaper you'd find in an old house that's been torn and gotten really dirty and stuff. I started with this very vanilla piece of cardstock and stamped it with the Bella Toil background stamp using Sahara sand ink. Then I took my blender pen and some markers and colored the design very lightly. I wanted it to be very subtle. After that, I used another background stamp, and this one's called Wonderfully Worn, and it just gives a lovely distressed kind of overlay. And I like to stamp my background stamps on some craft foam and a piece of scrap paper on top. I'm going to ink this Wonderfully Worn background stamp with Sahara sand. And stamp it right over my Bella Toil background. Then I'm going to turn the cardstock around and stamp it again with the same background. So you get this kind of speckled, dirty look to your piece. So from here, I'm going to just start sponging with some crumb cake, and with a circular motion and keeping my ink pretty light, I'm just going to make it look a little old and dirty, like so. Just tones everything down. Then I'm going to take some Sahara sand and just lightly do around the outside of the piece so that the edges look more dirty and worn than the center. I wanted to use some shimmer paint on this, but I didn't want to splotch it on like I did with the tapestry paper, so I decided to use my brayer instead. So I just have an empty stamp case here, and I'm going to put just a few drops of champagne shimmer paint on the outside of the box. And then I take my brayer and I just spread it out so I can get a nice thin film of the paint. And then I just apply that to my wallpaper piece until I have as much sparkle as I want. And that's given it a nice gold shimmery look. I made this distressed wallpaper right before I found out that Bella Toil is retiring with the new catalog. So I made some other samples. This one is using Elements of Style that I colored in the same way that I did the Bella Toil. And then I also wanted one that I didn't have to color, and here I used the medallion stamp as well as the flourish from Elements of Style. I like all three of these. I'm sure there are more stamps that I can find to make old wallpaper with. Now that this is dry, I can start doing the distressing and sponging the edges and crumpling it and making it look really old, like on this card, or I can just use it as a background as it is. Here's a card I made using the distressed wallpaper made with the medallion background stamp and the flourish from Elements of Style. And I didn't crumple this one up and mangle it quite as much. I distressed it, but still left it smooth in the center. And here's what the inside of the card looks like. This is the new Hostess set from Stampin' Up! Called Faith in Nature. So I hope you will try this distressed wallpaper technique. For the vintage technique videos on how to do the distressing and layering, you can find those on the Matt Stamper YouTube channel. Just look for vintage technique videos, or you can click on the links below this video on my website, www.stampingmadly.com. Happy stamping!